The Capital Maharaja Organization Limited made an official statement at a special session today on Day 2 of the United Nations World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul, Turkey.
The Capital Maharaja Organization Limited is the only Sri Lanka private sector organization represented at the summit.
The session was officiated by United Nations Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Response and Emergency Relief Coordinator Stephen O'Brien and former New Zealand Prime Minister and Administrator of the United Nations Development Programme Helen Clark.
In the run-up to this summit, there were consultations with more than 900 companies, because it was very clear the private sector wants to play a more active role in times of crisis as partners to governments and to the UN system. There's also the incredible contribution that business can bring at times of crisis. Its people, its systems, its technology, its logistics, its vehicles, its finance. And the frequency and magnitude of crises, as we know, are overwhelming the response capacities of governments and international and other organisations. So bringing all hands on deck, including from private sector, to prepare for and respond to crisis is critical.
We need to respond to the fact that the crises are rapidly outpacing the response of the broader so-called system, and we need to become much more a collection of partners delivering to engage. And businesses are affected by crisis, and they of course are the ones that provide the jobs. So it's absolutely vital that businesses are part of what we know want to be responding to crisis. They're trying to find a way of being a trademark for the future in how we should always operate, and it certainly responds to the call of the private sector for this joined-up approach of private sector engagement at all levels and at all stages of crises.
Chevaan Daniel, Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Organization Limited, which is the only private sector organization representing Sri Lanka at the summit, delivered a special statement. The statement was made by the Capital Maharaja Organization representing private sector interests in the region.
I am deeply honoured to bring you greetings from the Chairman of the Capital Maharaja Organization in Sri Lanka, Mr. Raja Mahendran, its Board of Directors and our staff. At the outset, on behalf of all Sri Lankans here, I would like to remember my fellow countrymen and women who lost their lives very recently to devastating floods and landslides. I also recognise a nation that came together and stood strong despite incredibly difficult conditions. On behalf of the private sector and other partner organizations, I am pleased to announce a commitment to form and lead an alliance for disaster risk management in Sri Lanka. This alliance will provide a multi-sectoral mechanism through which we may collaborate on an ongoing basis to reduce disaster risks, as well as coordinate our response to and recovery from emergencies. We will engage with all stakeholders to ensure our efforts meet the needs of our people. We will link our alliance to other networks globally through the Connecting Business initiative. We will agree to build, strengthen and implement our alliance to be launched after the summit, always keeping in mind that at the heart of everything we do are the people of Sri Lanka.
Several government representatives from around the world, including Prime Minister of Fiji Frank Bainimarama and Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium Alexander De Croo, as well as prominent business representatives, addressed the forum. Some 6,000 participants from 150 UN member states are taking part in the summit, including 57 heads of state or government. Today, Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva thanked the international community for its support during Sri Lanka's time of need.
Sri Lanka is currently experiencing heavy flooding and landslides that have affected nearly 500,000 people. Sri Lanka is thankful for the countries who have extended their support for relief and recovery measures. We believe that our action to implement the core responsibilities should be aligned with the UN development agenda, especially the core principles and objectives that countries have already committed to.
The two-day conference, which comes to a close today in Istanbul, seeks to develop a better response to what the UN has called the worst global humanitarian situation since World War II, with an estimated 130 million people now in need of aid.